ask some basic questions about your journey and your career. So, first, how did you discover your passion for, law?
Yes, thank you, Akash. Just briefly, and I will get to that. My name is Raul Alcantar. I am an attorney in California, and I'm currently general counsel, which means a general lawyer for an airport terminal. But I've been practicing for almost 18 years now, so it's not, my first job. But my passion for law, I guess that assumes I have a passion for law, but I do like my career, and it's been a ride and a journey, but it hasn't always been, all fun and games. But I do think those times when I've been able to help clients solve difficult situations, or maybe achieve a difficult outcome that maybe they thought was too difficult. Um, that's those are the moments that are rewarding and keep me going in my legal career.
Okay.
Of
So
course,
you,
happy to follow up. So if there's any follow up, feel free.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hope this is
So,
more of a conversation and not just. But good morning, everyone.
good morning. So you would say you like the aspect of, helping people where they can get help where they need help?
Yes, absolutely. And if sometimes my job is more of a traditional lawyer, like litigation or things like that. But oftentimes, especially in my current role, it's more like a counselor. So someone saying, "Well, is this a good business decision or not?" And what are the maybe it's a good idea now, but what about in 5 years? How is it going to look or work out? So that's a pretty cool aspect of my job now. It's
Okay.
not just, going to court and fighting there, but also just counseling people on strategy.
Okay. So, did you, when you were in your journey of, get having this career, did you ever have a mentor or someone you looked up to?
Yes, absolutely. So, and it wasn't always kind of official and formal, but almost at every stage, I've had people I look up to, or just whose advice I've sought, or people that who just took an interest in me. So, and that's maybe you can set up a formal meeting, like have coffee or go out to lunch, but also sometimes just a quick walk, or maybe popping into their office, or if you're not physically in the same place, excuse me, saying, "Hey, can I give you a call? I want to bounce some ideas off you." Uh, it's important to reach out if there isn't a natural connection, to be purposeful about it, because for example, I'm thinking of a lawyer who'd been practicing like 35 years when I was a first year lawyer. I had a lot to learn, and so um, those relationships, mentorship relationships, are very important.
Okay.
Okay, so I have another question. So, with the rise of AI and or any other prominent modern sectors, what is some advice you would give to the younger generation to utilize these tools and resources to the fullest extent?
Well, that's an interesting and difficult question, but you guys are probably better at it than I am. But it's so like every company, we are looking at AI, uh, and just yesterday we were talking to. I was part of a conversation between our chief technology officer and the chief technology officer of another company, just about tips on how to implement it and the opportunities and the risks. I would say that sometimes there's a sense that AI is like this magic tool that can just solve things for you. But what I found is that if you put in, uh, there's a saying, right? If you put in garbage, you get garbage out. So I think at the end of the day, currently at least, there's still a need for the user to know what they are talking about or their craft. So, for example, a radiologist. Their job is to diagnose, right? But AI currently is probably better at scanning the actual image, but they do not necessarily know how to diagnose or distinguish. So I would say, to the extent you're good at your job and your craft, or you know about a subject, you will get much better results from AI. So I think that's where we are currently. I'm not the expert, of course, but I would say that there's still a need to learn, to do the hard work, to be prepared, because then that allows you to leverage AI even more. Maybe in the future we will live in a world where AI can do absolutely everything, but I think we're far from that. So
Okay.
maybe
So
not too far, but that's not
yeah,
the case today from what I've seen.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. So did you face any challenges when you were, working your way up, going to law school, stuff like that? What were those challenges you faced?
Yeah, absolutely. I think challenges are a natural part of life in anything, and uh, someone's career is no different. So some are pretty common, and I think everyone's gonna have them at some point in their career, like a difficult colleague, a difficult client, a difficult boss. Um, so those are just natural. I think specific to my career, but it's important to keep your eye on the ball, the long term, and really distinguish, is this just a hiccup or a speed bump, or is this something that requires a bigger change? In terms of my career challenges, some of the challenges actually make it interesting, which is right now, because I'm more of a generalist, many of the issues I see, I I may not be an expert on, and so I have to learn. But that keeps it interesting because I get to learn, I get to call people, right? So if there's a tax issue, like who in my network knows about tax, or who can I rely on? Who can I have a quick conversation about? So those are some challenges, just not knowing everything. It's impossible to know everything. Um, but now, using human connections or AI are just the tools at your disposal. Another challenge has been um, another challenge has been just personal and work balance. So I think every single vacation since I've been a lawyer, I've had to work. So because I am in the client facing business, so if a client has a problem and happen to be on a cruise and they are relying on me, I'm not saying to get out of jail, but I can't say wait for me to get back and just sit tight in your jail cell. I'm giving just an extreme example, but that has been an issue. So how to balance your personal time and your career um, responsibilities, and I think that just requires, so setting up calls at certain times, or waking up early, or staying up late, or saying, you know what, certain times of my day or vacation, I'm just gonna turn off my phone for a little bit just to check out. But that's been a challenge as well.
So you would say challenges are definitely hard at the moment, but then you learn a lot from them, and eventually you'll come back stronger.
Yes, although you have to be smart about it, right? So some people say no pain, no gain, and that may be true, but you can't just have like silly problems and not get anything out of it. So there are situations which will be difficult, which are just you're not going to get anything out of it. Like so you need to be able to distinguish what's like good pain versus bad pain, and that's what your friends, your mentors, your family, your colleagues, that's what they're for. And to have those conversations and say, I have this conversation or this situation. Is it, just something I need to push through, or maybe it's something that I need to change, maybe change job, maybe change departments, maybe have a conversation with the person. Hey, this is not, I don't appreciate what's happening. Can we try something different? So yes, effort and challenges and struggles are a natural part of life, but you need to be smart about it, I would say.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now. You can just come to my computer.
What does the average what does your average day look like as a lawyer?
Okay, great. So that's changed a lot. my early career. I think early on, I would show up, sit at my desk, and wait for a phone call. And then I would get called to the partner's office, and they would say, "There's this big case with a million issues, but we need you to just look at this one issue and give me an answer in 3 hours," right? So it was just like researching stuff on Google, writing a memo, and then either providing a verbal report or a written memo or an email. Uh, then, as I advanced in my career, then it was more like I was receiving the memo, right? And saying, okay, so they told me I cannot sell this product uh, in Italy. So, but I want to sell this product in Italy. So then it's what can I recommend to the client? How can we tinker with the product to be able to sell it? Now I am on the client side, and I sometimes rely on outside firms. And I'm in the meeting where we say, well, what kind of products should we sell? And should we target Italy or not? So nowadays, I get into the office, I already have typically um, 50 emails or so to get through because we're a 24/7, 365 meeting. And there may be some fire drills from something. I work at an airport terminal, so if something horrible happened last night, then I need to deal with it with the investigation, law enforcement, etc. But if not, then there's a series of meetings about business strategy, budgets. If the bank has a question, if HR wants to talk about an employee complaint, but every day is very different. So so I would say my day has changed a lot. My usual routine from year 1 through 3 versus year 3 to 13 versus now that I'm on the client side. And I'm the lawyer embedded inside the company to try to filter through issues. And then if there's anything really serious, like a litigation or something like that, then I would use either our insurance provider or an outside firm to try to address that. I don't know if that answered the question, but if I didn't, please feel free to follow up.
Good. Let's see. Another question.
But your day varies depending on your career and your position and employer. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so my question is, what led you towards law as your career choice?
yes, fantastic. So I was or I've been told I was always kind of a high level person, whatever that means, and not very detail oriented. I hope that's changed now, and I've learned to be more detail oriented. But coming out of college, I think most of the process, I was an economics and government major, and most of the opportunities were like at banks or accounting firms. And I didn't really want to be sitting at a desk at that point in my life. I was maybe 21. So I thought, if I can get into a good law school, I can learn about how laws work or don't work and legal strategy, all of that. So maybe it was just a way to look into something new. But while I was in law school, I was able to see some pretty cool things and negotiations, companies with banks, banks with countries, etc. So it was more of a journey. I was not one of those kids who wanted to be a trial lawyer from the time they were like 5. So that was not me. And it's more, I discovered this career and how flexible it is and the different things you can do. So that's a pretty cool thing.
We have another question. Another two more.
Alright, so I know you talked about your current work-life balance. Do you have any piece of advice, or how did you manage your workload while in Harvard Law School?
How did I manage it? Well, in law school, it's kind of, I don't know if there's much balance, but you need to keep your sanity, right? So, especially the first year, it's pretty much, I hate to say it, but it's pretty intense. Everyone's just going as hard as they can. But and then, everybody's just trying to get the highest grades possible the first year because that informs the internships or the clerkships you're able to get later. But I think knowing that first year is just kind of like a sprint and that it's just a process you have to go through, like studying for the bar. I think the rest of your life and even the rest of law school, you can find more of a balance because then you can take the classes you're really interested in. Um, and so my third year, I wrote a paper on successful investments, and I was able to partially write that paper from a beach in Brazil. You know what I'm saying? So it's instead of staying in the Northeast where it's cold. So I think it's just looking for opportunities, and if you really need to take time, take it, because if you burn out, then that's the worst situation where you're not effective anymore. So sometimes saying, hey, I'm going to go to the gym for 30 minutes, or I need to call my friend, then you come back and you feel recharged and you're more effective at studying and more focused. So I would say just listen to yourself, listen to your mind, your state of being. And if you need a break, find a routine that works for you. Because if you push hard for 3 weeks or 3 months and then you burn out, then that's the worst situation you can be in.
Yeah. So we have like a couple more questions really quick.
What is the hardest thing about being a lawyer?
Hardest thing is or some of the hardest things. Well, I mentioned one of them, right? The work-life balance, because you have your clients and your clients don't care if you're on a cruise somewhere. They just want whatever difficult situation they're in, they want to have it addressed. The other thing is sometimes taking things too personal, like you will become involved in the client's, you think their fight is your fight. And so that's it's difficult because you try to empathize with people and feel their situation so you can be a better advocate, but that can also be draining, right? If there's an adverse outcome or something really doesn't work the way it should, or they're mad at you because of the fees. I only have one client and they pay me a salary, they don't pay me fees, so it's different now. But I think that taking your job too seriously can be a problem. So it's important to keep that separation while doing a very good job and taking it seriously, but also knowing like I have my life, I have my family, my friends at home. So keeping that separation and that balance.
Yeah.
Do you feel for the amount of work you're putting in, the reward is worth it?
Not all the time, but I think in the long term, yes. And I would say that if it's not, then that's a conversation you need to have with your employer and have career coaches. So not just mentors, but it's important to be aware of what the market's doing, the opportunities out there. So if a place isn't working for you and they're not recognizing your talents and your efforts, then look around. Of course, you need to be diplomatic about it, be strategic about it. But at the end of the day, if someone doesn't value you, then move on and find a situation that's giving you growth and compensating you. I would say, however, that sometimes you have to put in the work, sometimes for free, to be able to attain those higher levels of compensation. For example, I volunteered for many years for a board up in the Bay Area, 3 or 4 years for no compensation. And that experience really allowed me to be a better advisor in my current job. So you're not always going to get paid for what makes you better.
Okay. Yeah. So we have one really like quick last thing. What is one quote that has stuck with you for your entire career?
Yes, there was a quote that came to mind, but I was told not to say it by my wife. So I will say kind of the spirit behind it is that not everything worthwhile doing will require some sacrifice and sometimes pain. So, like I said before, it's important to whenever you're in an uncomfortable situation, sometimes that's what allows you to grow more. And of course, being able to distinguish between what's a bad situation and what's a good challenge, that's the key. Because some discomfort, some challenges are inevitable to push forward.
Okay. Thank you. So that's where we'll end it today. Thank you for sharing so much about your journey and about what you do. And yeah, thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you for taking the time. And if anybody wants to follow up, feel free to bug Akkaash. So
Yeah.
take care.
Bye.